Hello and welcome. It's been eons since I've last made a video on this channel, let alone make a video about one of my most favorite franchises of all time. To tell you the truth, I've actually been slumbering in my coffin for however many millions of years, just waiting for the moment when the drums of war thunder once again. And today, that thunder awoke everyone, even myself. So Bethesda and id Software released the teaser trailer for Doom: The Dark Ages. And I'll be talking about sort of the gameplay mechanics that we see, the areas, the levels. I'll try my best to keep it very short. I don't want to make the video an hour long. I mean, maybe you want to see an hour-long video? Just let me know in the comments below. But for this one, I'm going to keep it concise. So, let's get into this. So we start the trailer with a bit of a backstory on who the Doomslayer was and his role within the Argenta society when he first arrived to Argent D'Nur. And pretty much straight away, it leads us straight into a shot over the mountains, which then shows us the span of a city in siege and this beautiful vista in the back. You can see all these sentinel fortresses in the back, floating in the background, with these sort of two fighter jets, I believe, in the background. And this incredible hellish sort of moon that we see in the back, just lighting up the entire place, just letting us know that the demonic invasion has begun. And we can see the whole city just completely under ruin. And one of the things I want to point out is that you can actually see the statue of one of the Sentinel warriors sort of around the middle. So it leads me to believe that this is either an outpost for the Sentinel Society, specifically the ones that were related to or sided with the Doomslayer, or this could be the main city. But based on the size, I think this is one of those sort of outskirts where the followers of the Doomslayer went to when the demonic invasion went at its peak. We then see sort of a panning shot of the battleground of some sort. It does seem like it is in Argent D'Nur. Based off of the war banner that we see right in the middle. It is obviously all tattered and destroyed, so this is possibly that same city that I was talking about, now overrun with the demons, but just something I wanted to bring your attention to. The next shot, we see some sort of object colliding into a tower of some sort. Now obviously this is also Argent D'Nur, as we can see from the architecture. I don't think this is Sentinel Prime. I think this is a different city. Now, this is one of the more interesting shots in the entire trailer, because initially I thought that this might actually be Sentinel Prime, where we fight the gladiator boss. But that arena actually looks a little bit different. I mean, we've never seen these massive bones of these beasts attached to such a building. So to be honest, I don't really know what to say about this one. I'm not really sure where this is located. I mean, obviously it's located in Argent D'Nur, possibly, more than likely anyway. But that area does look to be quite significant. Then we have another interesting shot, which looks to be a floating city, possibly relating to the Makers. But the thing that makes it interesting is that even this location is actually under siege. This leads me to believe that this area is something that we, the player, and our faction, the people that are loyal to us, the Night Sentinels, actually go and attack systematic locations that are sort of, important to the Makers and the Night Sentinels that are aligned with the Makers. So moving on to the next frame, we can see that this appears to be some sort of Maker architecture. I don't really know if it's that Maker fortress that we'll see later on. And in the last few sort of frames of this sort of clip, you can kind of tell that this sort of platform opens up underneath, and you can see sort of two areas on either side of the Doomslayer, which leads me to believe that that's where his shotgun and the shield are kept. And obviously, this is that same scene, and as we can see, one of the sort of vaults has the Maker logo on it, which is very interesting because I would have thought that if this is located, if the game is taking place during the Civil War, the Doomslayer is not on the Maker side. So I'm kind of thinking that what happens is the Doomslayer and his faction, they sort of systematically take control of a Maker fortress and actually use that as their base of operations or their hub. This is where you would go and select the next mission, just like in Doom Eternal anyway. So as we can see, the iconic super shotgun being presented to the Doomslayer, and the main feature of this game, or the core mechanic, as you want to call it, that the shield. of the Doomslayer, with his logo clearly imprinted on it. And we can also see him wearing a pretty beautiful looking sort of brownish, blackish sort of mantle, or this sort of fur cape on the back. It looks great. Absolutely amazing. And in this shot, you can actually kind of see that sort of dark ages, sort of that medieval sort of inspired armor, especially around his legs, with the cloth, the leather, and a bit of that chainmail underneath, and that one chain going around his left side. And I love how the shield sort of magnetically attaches to his arm. It's such a good thing. And this is one of my most favorite shots in the trailer, just seeing how he enters from orbit, and you can see the clouds sort of disappearing through the sheer force that is being applied. It's just awesome. And we can also look back at a few frames and see that that appears to be Maker technology. And that yellow beam leads me to believe that that is sort of the same technology that is used all the way back in Doom Eternal in, I believe, Necrovol Part 2. But right at the very end, you can see all that cleansed, pure Argent energy that is being funneled all the way to Urdak, which is where the Makers utilize that energy in order to run their pocket dimension or their pocket universe. And it has that same color to it, that sort of golden sort of power and golden light to it. So this leads me to believe that this is either an orbital strike, as you can see in the next few frames, or it is actually the Doomslayer being teleported to the surface of this planet, which I'm assuming to be Argent Denor. Or maybe these two shots are completely different. I'm not too sure. The thing is, though, one of the things that I really want to make mention of is, as you see that laser or that energy hit the ground and you can see the shockwave, you can kind of see for a few seconds, you can see the Marauders, or Marauders before they got corrupted by the Hell energy or empowered by the Divinity Machine. Now, these Marauders are definitely not on the Slayer's side, nor are they in his faction. They're the ones that sided with the Makers, hence why they have a bit more of a sort of that traditional Marauder armor set, or that barbaric armor set, if you want to call it that. But you can also see about 3 or 4 bodies of the Knight Sentinels, the ones that are fully clad in metal armor, the ones that we see in Doom 2016 anyway, actually dead on the surface. And just for a few brief seconds, or the first few frames, you can actually see the old school imp. I think it's an imp, or it could be like a modified version of the Archvile. They kind of look similar with the glowing hands, but I'm pretty sure this is the imp based off of the classic Doom games. And here we can see the Doomslayer sort of getting up from wherever he's coming from. Now, I'm not sure if it's the same location or if it's even the same cinematic. Maybe they've stitched it together. One thing that is interesting is that it is raining in this area. You can see sort of that rain splatter all across his helmet, his shoulder pad, his shield. So it could be a completely different location, but it's too hard to tell based off of the lighting in this game, or at least in this trailer anyway. And then we get straight into the gameplay mechanic, which is just, so far, it actually looks really good. I know it doesn't look as fast as Doom Eternal, but I, for one, really like change, introducing new and interesting things. So far from what I've seen, it all looks really, really good. So first thing I want to make note are the 2 Mancubi. Obviously, they look fairly different, or somewhat different to how we've seen them in Doom Eternal. And you can also see sort of the projectiles that they're firing is actually pretty slow. Not quite sure, maybe they did that for this trailer, but I would have expected the projectile to be faster. But because a long time ago, Hugo Martin did say that this game would be more like a monster truck, whereas Doom Eternal was more like a race car. So this could flow into that sort of mentality or that mindset that they had when they created this game. We can see that how the super shotgun manages to completely blast off the arm of the Mancubus. Can't really tell if it's dead. I don't think it is. Maybe they don't want to show that yet. But also one thing to note is the reload animation for the super shotgun reminds me of the reload animation from, Doom Eternal multiplayer, the battle mode, specifically for the Marauder, because he just reloads it with one hand. So it looks very similar here. And also, just a few seconds later, you can see a group of zombies that are holding shields. If I remember correctly, I swear I've seen this sort of concept before back in the Doom Eternal sort of art book. If I manage to find it after making this video, I'll be sure to put it up on the video now. but I'm pretty sure I've seen those before, and it's interesting to see. I wonder how that's gonna work. Maybe you have to use the flail to break the shield first, then you can shoot them? Not quite sure at this stage. The area does seem very interesting though. Now speaking of areas, the next area and the new gun that we see, so I'll talk about the gun first. I mean, it literally crushes skulls or enemy skulls into projectiles that it just fires off. It's such a... it is a very interesting idea. I love sort of unique ideas. So now one other thing I want to bring to your attention is as he's approaching this group of marauders, let's just call them marauders, you can see in the background this massive arm, this sort of mechanized arm sort of rising from what looks to be the forge. You can see the sort of lava at the bottom, and you can see this arm rise. I'm fairly certain that this area is the forge or the foundry where these mechs are created. I wonder if we will go through the process of creating a mech ourselves, just like how we go to Doom Hunter base and we actually get to see how a Doom Hunter is created. Interested to see how this is going to work out. And obviously, the few seconds later, we get to see the shield and how it has sort of a chainsaw attached to it. I mean, that's just Doom written all over it. Let's just be completely honest. He revs the chain shield, and we can see what appears to be a revenant that just looks so different. It looks like the Grim Reaper almost, with this sort of flowing cape and the sickle in his hand. And when he shoots out projectiles, the projectiles are skulls themselves. And also we can see him actually throw his shield directly at the Revenant, which leads me to believe that it does just knock him out or interrupt them, because in the very last few frames, just before he makes the turn, you can see the Revenant sort of correct itself on the ground, kind of like how the Maker drones and the Maker angels correct themselves when you stagger them in the air. So kind of leads me to believe that the same sort of concept is used here. Then immediately we can see a brand new enemy, which is some sort of demonic beast. It kind of reminds me of the Pinkies actually, or sort of a variant of the Pinkies. And after staggering them, you can see the Doomslayer go in for a flail kill, let's just call it that. And you can kind of see how the camera sort of attaches to the cinematic, if you want to call it that. So it leads me to believe that you have an option of doing different kinds of glory kill. Because if you've seen any sort of glory kill in Doom Eternal, you know, it sort of locks the camera into place. And some of those glory kills take a while. But this one is just, you know, within less than a second and you're done. So it leads me to believe that that's exactly what this is. And then the next scene, which only lasts for like 2 seconds, is pretty interesting. We get to see the Arachnotron, who actually looks more beast-like without any of the armor, at least not on its legs anyway. It still has a turret on the back, which obviously is its core design, but it just does look more, I guess, Spider Mastermind-like. And as we all know from the story, the Arachnotrons are sort of created or cloned from the biomass or of the Spider Mastermind. Now, here's the interesting thing, right? You can see this sort of 2 floating brains in the background with these sort of tentacles, and I swear, like, I was going through the art book for Doom Eternal, and I managed to find something that resembles very similar to what these are. And in the art book, they're listed as sort of Maker design demons of some kind that have sort of a face. And in some of the screenshots, in some of the frames, you can kind of make out a face or some sort of light. Not quite sure, but they do look somewhat similar to it. And then obviously in the next scene, this appears to be in hell. And there's a few reasons why I think that way. First of all, it's this massive skull on the right with these sort of, you know, lava tears running down his face and all the fire and brimstone all over the place. And you can actually see a couple of the sort of demonic sort of gargoyle statue on the right as well. And this just general sort of clutter in the area leads me to believe that this is hell. And you can also see quite a lot of enemies, including the corrupted sort of zombies, the humans that got corrupted and became full-on zombies. We can see them, they look exactly the same as in Doom Eternal, but we can also see the marauders. However, they look kind of corrupted. They're not fully like the marauders that we know of, but you can kind of tell that they have been corrupted or have sort of been drinking the Hell's essence, which does in fact corrupt mortals. The next section is what appears to be obviously in Argent d'Nur again. Don't know if it's the same location as I mentioned earlier on in the video, but one main thing to note are the two massive battleships in the background, and how the one on the right has these sort of tentacles at the bottom. That's a very common design from Imora, or Davoth. That's the sort of architecture that they had, or at least his forces have. So this, obviously, you can tell by looking at it that yes, this is the Hell's forces. And then we're greeted to another gun and sort of another ability. Then he goes on to shield bash another group of enemies and then engages what appears to be the Doom Hunters, or what they were originally called as the Agadon Hunters, if I remember correctly. Now these Agadons, they were present during the Unholy Crusades, actually. So the makers, or I should say the priests, the Deek priests, they heavily utilized this type of demon to hunt down Doom Guy, and obviously all of people that sort of followed him. And these people these demons are meant to be very dangerous. Literally hunted people to extinction. And also, now that I'm looking at it, you can see that this, let's just call it the Agadon Hunter, right, has this massive sort of fur sort of mane, or sort of its back is covered in this massive furry sort of cape, or just back is that hairy? I don't really know. Which may lead me to believe that the cape that the Doomslayer is wearing may be of a Agadon hunter that the Doomslayer has killed just before. So interesting to see this level of detail. And you can also look around the area, which seems very open to me. And it was this scene that made me think that maybe, instead of the game being very sort of linear based, as like in the past, this might be semi-open world, I think. There's no real barrier preventing you from going somewhere you're not supposed to go. Or maybe the arenas are really that massive, kind of like the World Spear level, if any of you guys have played through that. That was, the arenas there were fairly large. So maybe with new technology, they might be saying, hey, let's just make the arenas even bigger and have even more enemies. And the next shot is... I had a feeling this was going to happen at some stage, knowing Hugo and his sort of obsession with mechs. Okay, this scene, this half a second clip is interesting to me. Now, I don't know if this is Mars or it could be Hell, a specific part of Hell that I don't really know. The architecture in the background, the building in the background, looks very much UAC technology to me. But when you look at the technology on the left with the sort of teleporter, that kind of seems more, I guess, a bit more Sentinel-based, maybe? I'm not quite sure. But the fact that we can see sort of the Doomslayer sort of punching this massive Titan in the face, it kind of leads me back to a video that I made where I talk about the idea of the Doomslayer, defeating a Titan with its bare hands, just on foot, right? And I'm pretty sure in the video I said that's not really possible. I mean, it's possible, but it would take a hell of a long time, because these Titans are absolutely massive. And I'm pretty sure in that video I said that, the Doomslayer has a freaking mech in his fortress. And if you go back and actually look at the mech, there's like this 3 scratches on its chest, which kind of leads me to believe that it was caused by a Titan, because they have 3 fingers, or 4 fingers, I'm pretty sure. I'll have to go back and check. Yep, they've got 3 fingers, or 4, I should say. So maybe this is, how the Doomslayer destroyed the Titans. Maybe, he did use a mech, and maybe I was right. I don't know. But I'm interested to see how it happens. And then we get to see, obviously, the demon dragon of some kind. It actually has one eye missing now that I'm looking at it closer. We can see it flying around the place, which looks to be Argent d'Nur based on its architecture. It also seems like we are just passing by a maker ship of some kind that is firing out green energy orbs. It kind of reminds me of the sort of texture from the Blood Swamps, especially when, right at the very end, when you go and get the life orb of Davoth, the Dark Lord. It kind of has a similar sort of texture with this sort of bumpy white sort of texture to it. And then obviously the final scene of the trailer is sort of the dragon, the Doomslayer dragon, sort of paying homage to the Godzilla movie, where he breathes sort of this lava or fire into the Titan, basically killing it. Yeah, there's quite a lot of references in this game, or at least in this trailer. So far, it does look very interesting. A lot of changes that have been brought, both visually and mechanically. I'm more interested in the visual aspect of the game. Like, it looks far darker. It kind of reminds me more of that Doom 2016 sort of art style, or at least the sort of lighting and contrast is more Doom 2016, with the color palette being more Doom Eternal. So it's kind of sort of that middle ground. And so far, I really, really like what I see. I'm absolutely hyped for this game. I can't wait. I do want to talk more about the sort of implication of this game and this trailer and what it represents, but I'll cover that in a separate video because it goes a bit more heavy into the lore. So anyways, if you want to see that, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this sort of trailer analysis, let me know. And as always, I'll see you in hell.